Right now, at this very moment, there are millions of Americans sitting at kitchen tables across this country, staring at retirement account statements they don't fully understand, making a single quiet decision that is costing them thousands upon thousands of dollars every single year. And the most heartbreaking part? They think they're doing everything right. They think they're being responsible. They think they're being smart. But according to a landmark study from one of the most powerful financial institutions in the entire world, JP Morgan Chase, 84% of retirees who have reached the age where withdrawals become mandatory are making what experts are now calling one of the most costly and misunderstood mistakes in all of American retirement history. And if you are over 60, if you have any kind of retirement account, if you have a 401k, a traditional IRA, a 403b, anything of that nature, then what I am about to share with you in the next several minutes could literally change the financial course of the rest of your life. So please, stay with me. Because I promise you, by the time we reach the end of this video, you are going to see your retirement in a completely different light. And I am going to share with you something near the end of this video, a little known, rarely discussed strategy that most financial advisors are not talking about, that could give you more financial freedom, more dignity, more peace of mind than anything you have encountered in your retirement planning journey so far. Now, before we dive into the heart of this, I want you to think about someone for a moment. I want you to think about a woman named Dorothy. Dorothy is 77 years old. She lives in a modest home in central Ohio that she has owned for over 30 years. She worked as a school librarian for most of her adult life, and she saved faithfully, diligently, sometimes sacrificially, putting money into her traditional 403b account every single month for decades. Dorothy did everything she was told to do. She was responsible. She was disciplined. And when she finally retired at 68, she felt proud. She felt secure. But here is what nobody told Dorothy. Nobody told her that the way she was drawing from her retirement account, the bare minimum amount that the IRS required her to withdraw each year, was quietly setting up a financial trap that would not fully reveal itself until years later, when the numbers grew so large and the required withdrawals became so significant that her tax bill in retirement began to look more like her tax bill during her highest earning working years. Dorothy was doing what 84% of retirees are doing. And by the time she understood what was happening, she had already lost tens of thousands of dollars to an entirely avoidable tax burden. Dorothy's story is not unique. In fact, it is the rule, not the exception. And that is exactly what this video is here to address. So let us start at the very beginning, because I want to make sure that every single person watching this video, regardless of where you are in your retirement journey, understands exactly what we are talking about. The term RMD stands for Required Minimum Distribution, and it is precisely what the name implies. It is the minimum amount of money that the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, legally requires you to withdraw from certain retirement accounts once you reach a specific age. Now, this age has changed in recent years, thanks to landmark legislation known as the SECR 2.0 Act. Prior to this legislation, the required minimum distribution age was set at 72. But as of 2024, that age has been pushed to 73. And the legislation goes even further, because by the year 2033, that age will rise again to 75. So if you are currently in your late 60s or early 70s, these changes directly affect your planning timeline in ways that are both meaningful and potentially very strategic, if you understand how to use them correctly. Now, the accounts that are subject to required minimum distributions include some of the most common retirement savings vehicles in America. We are talking about traditional 401k plans, 403b plans, which are commonly used by educators and nonprofit workers, 457b plans, thrift savings plans, which are used by federal government employees and military personnel, traditional individual retirement accounts, SEP IRAs, Simply IRAs, and profit-sharing plans. These accounts all share one critical characteristic. The contributions made into them were made with pre-tax dollars. That means the money went in before you ever paid income tax on it. The growth inside the account was also tax deferred, meaning it grew without being taxed year after year. But the IRS has never forgotten about that tax. They have simply been patient. And when you reach the required minimum distribution age, their patience runs out. They want their portion, and required minimum distributions are the mechanism by which they collect it. Now there is one important and powerful exception to all of this, and it involves accounts of the Roth variety. Roth IRAs and Roth 401ks, in most traditional circumstances, are not subject to required minimum distributions during the account owner's lifetime. The reason is straightforward. Contributions to Roth accounts are made with after-tax dollars, money you have already paid taxes on. So the IRS has no deferred tax claim waiting inside a Roth account. This distinction between traditional and Roth accounts becomes extraordinarily important later in this video when I share with you the single most powerful and overlooked strategy in all of retirement tax planning. So please, keep that in mind as we continue. Now let us talk about the penalty for failing to take your required minimum distribution, because it is severe enough that it demands your full attention. If you are required to take a distribution and you do not, the IRS imposes a penalty of 25% of the amount you should have withdrawn. Let me say that again, 25%. So if your required minimum distribution for the year was $40,000 and you simply did not take it, you are looking at a penalty of $10,000 on top of whatever taxes you would have owed on the withdrawal itself. That is a devastating financial blow. However, and this is important, there is a provision that allows you to reduce that penalty to just 10% if you discover the mistake and correct it, meaning you take the missed distribution within a generally accepted window of approximately 2 years. 10% is still a significant penalty, but it is far more manageable than 25%. The lesson here is simple. If you have reached RMD age, take your distribution. Do not leave money on the table in the form of unnecessary penalties. Calculating your required minimum distribution is actually more straightforward than most people realize. The formula involves just two numbers. The first is your account balance as of December 31st of the previous year. The second is something called a life expectancy factor, which the IRS publishes annually in tables that are freely available to the public. You simply divide your account balance by your life expectancy factor, and the result is your required minimum distribution for that year. To give you a real-world example, imagine a 75-year-old retiree with a traditional 401k that had a balance of $500,000 on December 31st of the previous year. According to the IRS Uniform Lifetime Table, the life expectancy factor for a 75-year-old is 24.6. Dividing 500,000 by 24.6 gives you a required minimum distribution of approximately $20,325 for that year. Now, as you get older, the life expectancy factor decreases, and this forces a progressively larger percentage of your account out as a distribution each year. This is intentional. The IRS wants the money out of these tax-sheltered accounts and into taxable income over time. If you would prefer not to do the math yourself, there are excellent online calculators available, including one from NerdWallet that I highly recommend, and I will reference it in the resources section of this video. Now here is where the story takes a dramatic and critically important turn. Here is where the JP Morgan Chase study becomes not just interesting, but genuinely alarming. The study examined a broad cross-section of retirees and looked specifically at how they were utilizing their retirement accounts. What the analysis found was that 84% of retirees who had already reached required minimum distribution age were taking only the minimum withdrawal, not a dollar more. And even more striking, 80% of retirees who had not yet reached RMD age had taken 0 distributions from their accounts. 0. Not a single withdrawal. And on the surface, that might sound like extraordinary discipline. It might sound like those retirees are being perfectly responsible stewards of their savings. But when you look beneath the surface, when you understand what is actually happening inside those accounts over time, the picture becomes far more complicated and, for many retirees, far more troubling. Here is what is actually happening. Because these retirees are only withdrawing the minimum required amount, in many cases their accounts are continuing to grow. The market returns, the compound interest, the dividends are all adding more to the account than the minimum withdrawal is taking out. And on paper, that sounds wonderful. A growing account sounds like success. But here is the silent danger that most people never see coming. As the account balance grows, so does the future required minimum distribution. Remember, the formula is account balance divided by life expectancy factor. If your account grows significantly over a decade, your required minimum distribution 10 years from now could be dramatically larger than it is today. And that larger distribution means a larger taxable income. And a larger taxable income can mean a higher tax bracket, a higher Medicare premium through what is known as the Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount, or IRMA, and potentially the loss of other income-based benefits and assistance programs. Let me bring this to life with another story, because numbers alone do not capture the human weight of what is at stake here. I want you to meet a man named Robert. Robert is 83 years old, a retired engineer from the state of Georgia. He was a meticulous planner his entire career, and he entered retirement at 67 with a traditional IRA worth approximately $450,000. Robert was proud of that balance. He worked hard for it. And when he began taking only his required minimum distributions, he felt he was being prudent. He was protecting his nest egg. He was being careful. But by the time Robert reached 80, his account had grown to over $700,000 due to continued market growth combined with modest withdrawals. And his required minimum distribution had ballooned to a figure that pushed him firmly into a higher federal tax bracket. Worse, his income level now triggered IRMA surcharges on his Medicare Part B and Part D premiums, adding hundreds of dollars per month to his healthcare costs. Robert had saved his way into a tax trap. And the quiet, cautious strategy that felt so safe for so many years had accumulated consequences he never anticipated. Robert is not alone. He is the rule. Now, I want to stop here for just a moment and ask you something directly. If you are watching this video right now, I want you to leave a comment below and tell me two things. Tell me your age, and tell me your biggest financial struggle right now. Is it prescription drug costs? Is it Medicare premiums? Is it rent or property taxes? Is it food? Is it the fear of outliving your savings? Is it caring for a spouse or a family member while trying to manage your own finances? Because your comments matter. They shape future videos. And they remind every other person watching this video that they are not navigating this alone. So please, take 30 seconds and share your story below. Now I want to address something that is very important, because I do not want anyone watching this video to walk away with the wrong impression. Taking only your required minimum distribution is not automatically a mistake. Let me be very clear about that. The mistake is not the action itself. The mistake is taking that action without understanding why, without looking at the full picture, and without considering whether it is actually serving your best interests. There are legitimate, intelligent reasons why a retiree might choose to limit withdrawals to the required minimum. If you have multiple income sources, Social Security, pension, rental income, a traditional brokerage account, and your required minimum distribution alone is already pushing your taxable income to a level you are comfortable with, then there may be no compelling reason to withdraw more. If you are engaged in intentional legacy planning and you want to leave behind the largest possible inheritance for your children or grandchildren, keeping account balances high has a certain strategic logic, particularly if your heirs will be in a lower tax bracket than you are and can draw down those inherited accounts over time at a lower tax rate. And it is worth mentioning that heirs who inherit traditional retirement accounts generally have 10 years under current law to fully withdraw those funds, which gives them the ability to spread the tax burden across multiple years. If you are passing on a Roth account to an heir, the situation becomes even more favorable because the heir owes no income tax on withdrawals from an inherited Roth account. That is a genuinely powerful legacy tool. But here is where intentionality becomes everything. The retirees who are in the most danger are not the ones who have carefully weighed these options and made a deliberate choice. The retirees who are most at risk are the ones who are taking only the minimum because they are operating from fear. Because the mindset of saving, the decades-long discipline of accumulating and protecting, is so deeply wired into who they are that spending, even spending their own money on their own life, feels dangerous. And study after study confirms something that is both beautiful and a little heartbreaking. As retirement progresses, expenses tend to naturally decrease. Your early retirement years, sometimes called the go-go years, are your most active and often your most expensive. You are traveling, you are exploring, you are finally doing the things you spent a lifetime promising yourself you would do. Then come what researchers call the slow-go years, where activity levels begin to taper. And finally, the no-go years, where life simplifies significantly and costs often follow. The irony for so many retirees is that they sacrifice the go-go years by hoarding funds they could be using, only to find in the slow-go and no-go years that their account balances have grown so large that the tax consequences become severe precisely when they need simplicity and predictability the most. Required minimum distributions were never designed to be a retirement spending strategy. They were designed as a tax collection mechanism by the IRS. And building your retirement lifestyle around a government tax collection schedule is a little like planning your vacation around the DMV's calendar. It was never meant to work that way. Your withdrawal strategy should be built around one thing and one thing only: the life you want to live. The experiences you want to have, the dignity and independence and joy that your decades of sacrifice have earned you the right to experience. Your money should be working for your life, not the other way around. Now stay with me, because I promised you something near the end of this video. I promised you a strategy that most people never hear about. Something that financial advisors frequently overlook in their standard planning conversations. Something that could dramatically change your tax picture in retirement, reduce future required minimum distributions, lower your Medicare premiums, and potentially free up thousands of dollars for the life you actually want to live. And here it is. It is called a Roth conversion strategy, and when executed thoughtfully and at the right time, it is one of the most powerful financial tools available to retirees and pre-retirees today. Here is how it works. In the years between your retirement and the age at which your required minimum distributions kick in, which could now be anywhere from age 73 to 75 depending on your birth year, you may find yourself in a relatively lower tax bracket. Your income may be lower than it was during your working years. Social Security may not yet be at its full benefit level. And this window of lower income creates a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. During this window, you can voluntarily convert a portion of your traditional IRA or 401k into a Roth IRA. You will pay income tax on the converted amount in the year of the conversion. But once that money is inside the Roth, it grows tax-free. It is never subject to required minimum distributions during your lifetime. Future withdrawals are tax-free. And if you pass it on to an heir, those withdrawals are also tax-free. Converting strategically, meaning converting just enough each year to fill up a lower tax bracket without tipping into a higher one, can dramatically reduce the size of your traditional account balance over time. And a smaller traditional account balance means smaller future required minimum distributions. Smaller required minimum distributions mean lower taxable income. Lower taxable income can mean lower Medicare IRMA surcharges, preservation of income-based benefit eligibility, and a far more manageable and predictable tax situation in the later years of retirement. This is not a complicated scheme. This is not a loophole. This is a perfectly legal, IRS-sanctioned strategy that is available to virtually every American with a traditional retirement account. And yet the majority of retirees never do it. Not because they cannot, but because nobody ever told them it was an option. I want to share one more story before we close, because I believe in the power of real lives to illustrate what numbers alone cannot fully convey. Her name is Margaret. She is 71 years old, recently widowed, living in a small community in rural Tennessee. Margaret had spent years being told by well-meaning family members to leave her IRA alone. Let it grow. Do not touch it unless you have to. And so she did. But after attending a community workshop on retirement finances, Margaret learned about Roth conversions for the first time. She was skeptical at first. She had never heard of it. Her own accountant had never mentioned it. But she asked questions. She did the research. She consulted with a fee-only financial planner. And she made the decision to begin modest, strategic annual Roth conversions while she was still in a lower tax bracket. Within 3 years, Margaret had moved a significant portion of her traditional IRA into a Roth account, paid taxes at a manageable rate, and dramatically reduced the projected size of her future required minimum distributions. Her estimated Medicare premium trajectory also improved. And for the first time in years, Margaret told her daughter that she felt like she actually understood her own money, that she felt in control, that she felt like she could breathe. That is what financial knowledge does. It does not just change numbers, it changes lives. Now, as we close this video, I want to speak to you directly, not as a content creator to a viewer, but as one human being to another who understands that the years after 60 can carry a weight that younger generations do not fully appreciate. The fear of running out of money, the fear of being a burden, the fear that one medical emergency or one market downturn could unravel everything you worked for. Those fears are real, and they are valid. But they are not the whole story, because the truth is, you are not behind. You are not out of options. You are not at the mercy of a system you cannot understand. There are tools available to you. There are strategies that can work in your favor. There are windows of opportunity that, once you see them, you cannot unsee. And the single most powerful thing you can do today, right now, is to become informed, to ask better questions, to seek out advisors who genuinely serve your interests, to stop making financial decisions out of fear and start making them out of knowledge and intention and hope. You have earned this chapter of your life. Every sacrifice, every late night, every dollar saved, every dream deferred, it was all for this. Do not shortchange yourself out of the life that money was always meant to fund. You deserve to live it fully. You deserve financial dignity. You deserve peace of mind. And with the right information, you are far more capable of achieving all of that than you may have ever been told. So please, like this video if it helped you in any way. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss an update that could impact your financial well-being. Share this with someone you love who might need to hear exactly this message today. And leave your comment below. Your age. Your biggest struggle. Because your voice matters here. And we are all in this together. I will see you in the next video. Take care of yourself. You have earned it.